there's so much of running I want to get to, which I can't wait to pick your brain on. But let's. I don't know much about cross country at all. Like, is there like an average distance that the courses need to be?
Right. So in cross country at the high school level, we run 5Ks, which are 3.1 miles. I mean, sometimes they vary depending on where the course is, but in general, they're all 5K. Girls and boys both run 5K. That's different. College boys jump up to 8K and 10K. But yeah, we all run the same distance. But like middle school, they run a 3K. So that is a big jump, and that's why, I look at the middle school team that has my daughters on it, and there's like, they have like, 70 kids, and then there's a big jump off, because that is a big, jump
right.
from like 1.8 miles to 3.1.
Right.
A little scary, and I get it, and so.
And is it like, are some of them like trails? Like through the woods?
All of the courses are in general are trail. Some are grass. Our favorite course is at Belfast, which is right at the middle school, and it's mostly grass, and they've done a great job of making it a nice wide trail.
Right.
There's some through the woods. It's not hilly course. It's a pretty flat course. So the kids usually run their fastest times there, and we
right.
run it several times so they can see the progression through the season, and that's really cool. Because we don't have like the wins and losses necessarily like other sports, but like that time improvement for everyone is
right.
important.
And that's a good barometer on that course.
Right.
Right. Now, did you say that's an MDI?
It's in Belfast, right. Okay. At their middle school. Yeah. Okay.
Your shirt has me thinking about MDI.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which we'll get to that too. And then how's point scoring
for cross country?
Yeah.
So in every meet we can run as many people as we want, and only our top 7 score. So they take the place they got, and they take the top 5 runners actually, and they add them up, and low score wins. It's a little more complicated than that, because like if you don't have a team, like if you don't have 5 people, then you are displaced and they like move you down. So low team wins. And actually this year in one of our races we tied for second place to Bangor actually, and they go to the 6th runner. So whoever has the best place out of the 6th runner. So every runner matters.
Right. And is there more points for first place?
So it's the smallest score wins. So 1 is good, right? So it's good we have Abbott on our team, because he generally is first or second. So low score wins. So perfect score is 15 if we went 1 through 5, which does happen in like smaller meets early in the season. But as you get to the bigger meets, you're looking to score more in the 60s to 100s.
Right.
Once you add all the runners in and stuff.
Gotcha. So you guys won states for the boys, right?
For the boys. Our boys won states, which was it wasn't shocking to us. Everyone thought it was shocking. It wasn't shocking. We were kind of like moving in the right direction, and at regionals we got second to Brunswick by 4, but we were just kind of edging closer, and you could tell that we were possibly going to get them, but we beat them by like 40 points, which is a lot in cross country. Like,
right.
That's several runners back, so they came out and did what they were supposed to, so that's good.
And then did you win coach of the year or something? Is this your first year head coach?
So my first year head coach, yeah. So Mr. Veach and I, who you've never met him.
The parent-teacher conferences last year fell apart. We just didn't schedule them. The whole scheduling didn't work. And then this year, I'm on the board of trustees at the Lower Hoyt Pool.
Yeah.
And I had a pool board meeting. I got to see I was in all the other parent-teacher conferences.
He probably was filled.
And no, Deed sat in it, but I had to leave. So yeah, I haven't actually met him.
Yeah. So he coached. So Mr. Ballantyne coached for a long time. He was a biology teacher with me, and I coached with him, assistant coach. And when he got done, my kids were young, and so Mr. Veach and I co-head coach, because it's just hard, especially being a female with your kids young. It's really, really hard. And so we co-head coached, and then he decided not to coach this year, so my kids are, you know, at the age where it's a little easier to be the head coach. I mean, it's still hard on the family, for sure. The falls are a hard time for the family in the house, but yeah.
And then Coach of the Year.
Yeah, so
Congratulations.
So the Portland Press Herald. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. I mean, I credit a lot of it to, you know, Mr. Ballantyne, who was a great role model for me and mentor, and, you know, helped me with how to train the kids and, you know, the team atmosphere. And yeah, so
going into a season, like, what do you, like, I've never been on a running team. I've been on swim teams, so I kind of know there are some similarities to swimming and running, but it's such a different thing. Like, what are your strategies going into a season? Like, how to approach? I mean, obviously you have very different tiers of runners,
right?
And then you have. You did boys and girls only,
right.
You, right? Do you have an assistant coach?
So I have an assistant coach,
okay.
But he's a college kid, so he missed practice sometimes 2 times a week. Right. So then it would just be me. Luckily, we had a great team. Like, there was no discipline issues, stuff like that. So that has been a, you know, kind of a hard part, but none this year. You know, in terms of how I approach the season, like, it's really important to, like, meet the kids where they are, you know, really important on, like, making sure they have a solid foundation and base, probably just like swimming, that, you know, we're not going to start out with workouts. Like, we don't actually do workouts until about week 4 or 5 with the kids. You know, we get them nice solid base, you know, some mileage, work into higher mileage. You know, we use Jack Daniel's running program. That's what I use. And, you know, it's in these phases, like 5 phases. And
not like Jack Daniel's, the whiskey.
No. The kids don't know, actually. I mean, they know, I call it just Daniel's. They don't know it's Jack Daniel's. But, yeah, so that's what we use. And I modify some things, but, you know, it has a good progression. It has them, you know, able to handle the workouts. And, you know, the workouts meet them where they are. So every time we do a workout, all of the athletes have individual times that they're supposed to hit based on their condition, their VO2 max. So it takes a lot of effort by me. Like, I don't think the kids know quite how many hours I spend on Sundays, you know, making out the workouts and what they're going to run. And but it's worth it. I mean, obviously, you know, my kids peaked when they were supposed to.
Right.
And, so I guess I wouldn't change anything, you know, but I think that the kids buying in to trusting that I know what I'm doing is important. Right. You know. Right.
So you calculate the VO2 max of.
Right. So I use Jack Daniel's. He has like this. Well, there's like a calculator really, and it takes their current conditioning. So like what they can currently run a 5K in, and it gives them like how fast they should run their tempo runs or intervals or reps or whatever we're doing. Right. And, you know, so it meets them where they are. You know, some training, you know, they're trying to go for the end results, but, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose that they're not able to do those fast things. Right. You know, like anyone can probably go run some 400s, but, you know, when you get up closer to like the thousands, we do a lot of 1,000-meter workouts or miles. You know, they just can't sustain it for, you know, right. a couple. You know, sometimes we do up to 5 1-mile repeats, and, you know, that's a lot. So. Yeah. So, I've noticed the more I've been running, what a mentally challenging sport running is. More so than I ever would have imagined. And like, it's one thing to deal with my own mental issues, but to deal with students and trying to, I mean, you must be having to constantly motivate them or get them out of their own heads, but then. Right. That, I mean, we talk to them a lot about, like, especially when we get to like championship season, that, you know, they're physically in great shape. And so we talk about the mental aspect, we like some pointers, stuff that works for them, you know, like visualizing the race ahead of time, having their game plan ahead of time. You know, they're very superstitious. Runners are very superstitious about, you know, what underwear they wear, what they eat for breakfast, or, you know, even the girls, how they do their hair or whatever. So, you know, I would say about 70% of my effort with the kids is on the mental part, keeping them stronger. It's harder with the girls for sure. They, unfortunately lack that mental toughness for some reason. But I laugh because one of my girls was injured this year, so she was around me a lot when I was like dealing with when kids were like struggling, and
Right.
and she always commented on how I would say different things to them, and it was amazing how I knew what to say to certain kids and how I would say something different to another kid. And I said I just have to know their strengths and weaknesses and what to play off of. When they're like, oh, I can't do another one, and
Right.
like what you say to certain ones versus other ones. So it's a lot of mind games, truthfully, to
And-
like
and you're
to
doing it by
motivate them.
And doing it by feel, pretty much, right? I mean,
Right.
there's no roadmap.
Yeah, there's no roadmap, and like I'm sure I haven't done it right for some
Right.
kids, and and but I'm trying my best, and I really pay attention to kids. Like I observe a lot more than I'm out there because I want to see how they react. So I think that's where I get a lot of my ideas and motivation of how to deal with them, is just like watching them and really paying attention to them and their whole mind, body, and stuff.
Right. Do you have runners that want to run too much too? I mean, that's my biggest issue. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
like having to hold them back so that they're not injuring themselves, or.
Yes, I'd say it's both ends. Like people that want to do too much mileage because they think that if they do more, that means they'll be better. Those are usually my like junior senior boys that want to like go to the next level. And then we have on the other end the freshmen. So in general, we don't let the freshmen do as many mileage, or even like if we were doing a workout, like we were doing 5 1 miles or something, and they're usually at tempo pace. We would never let like one of our good freshmen do 5 tempo. It's just too much. Like it's a long season, so we always
Right.
have to pull them back. So I think it's at both ends. But this year we didn't have a lot of that issue. Kids knew.
Right.
Again, I guess maybe they're trusting in me that I know what I'm doing in the training. So that's good, I guess.
Yeah, I've said, I don't know, I don't think you know Evan, Kaylin's boyfriend, but he was training for the 2 mile for the military, and I would tell him, I'm like, I'd rather train for a marathon any day than a 2 mile run. Like, to me,
Yeah.
or even 5K, like,
Yeah.
because you're pushing at such a high
Yeah.
RPM. So
Right. It's
like
different training.
I don't enjoy it. Like, I like to run at a smooth, comfortable,
Right.
just starting to get the uncomfortable, and then
Right.
go for a long ways.
Right.
It's such an uncomfortable pace.
Yeah. So we in racing. So we always give this speech that Mr. Ballantyne used to give called joggers, runners, and racers, and the difference between the two, and it tailors to what you just said. Like joggers, when they have that like hard, where they they have that like little devil telling them, oh, this is too hard, you can't do it, they'll stop, or not stop necessarily, but just be like, they won't push past. Or if like someone passes them in the race, they'll just like be like, oh, okay. But racers are like, well, like, just push that. They're the ones at the line that are just dead. They can't even walk, or they've given it all. And when someone passes them in the race, they don't just let them pass them. They might like.
Right.
So, yeah, it's really the mental thing. The racers are like the mentally strong kids. Like Abbott is one of the mentally toughest kid I've ever coached. He can work into this pain threshold and like not let it bother him. Where some of my other even good runners that have this year haven't quite mastered that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's something for next year, because they're not seniors. So something we can work on.
I've always for years, when I run, I would keep myself at that uncomfortable pace, and then about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I learned about Zone 2 running. I don't know if you know much about Zone 2 running. So there's a lot of like high end marathoners and tri Ironman runners that run. You keep your heart rate in Zone 2. So if you have 5 heart rate zones, and you train in Zone 2 almost all the time, and you sprint, and what for myself, so staying in zone 2 like I said, about 2 years ago, I was doing like a 10-minute mile to stay in that heart rate zone. I'd have to walk up hills, like I couldn't, like, and just staying strict on my heart rate. Like if I hit the top of my zone 2, I'm slowing down. Well, now I can do pretty much an 8:30 pace, and still be in zone 2.
Yeah.
And so you're building up your base, your comfortable base. That then, so now for me to go from 8:30 down to an 8 is only, barely going into zone 3, where before it'd be tapping onto zone 4.
Right.
So training it, but I'm also not trying to do a 5 mile. I'm trying to go 100 miles and beyond, which is such a different thing too.
Right.
It's but the thing for me, or at least where I am now, because I would consider myself a sprinter.
Yeah.
I played high school football, and we'd have to run the mile like a few times in preseason.
Right.
And that's the longest I'd ever run in my life.
Crazy. Until
Until about 10 years ago. Like, I'm like, and that was brutal. I hated it. But there was this point where I realized, mile 2 isn't that bad. Much different. Mile 3 isn't that much better.
Right.
Actually, 2 and 3 feel better than 1.
Right. It's crazy how
and
that
then
is,
it just kept snowballing
Yeah.
into craziness, until marathons kind of came.
Right.
So, do you teach much So I just ran the Millinocket Marathon. Was it last weekend?
2 weekends?
2 weekends. It was a cold weekend.
Yeah. One of the cold weekends.
And I was just thinking about this. Well, it's funny you mentioned before that, like, when you were running, thinking about this. I mean, I love how my mind can go places when I run, and this is definitely how I kind of, my prep for this is running and let my mind go. But when I was running Millinocket, I was amazed at how, like, everybody's gait strides look so much different. Feet going everywhere, long strides. And I've adjusted mine a bit recently. Do you even tinker with
all
or
the
let
time.
them run?
Yeah, no, all the time. Like when they're this person I was talking about that was injured, she would laugh at me because I would say, oh gosh, I gotta tell so and so to like lengthen their stride, or or be like a little bit more upright, or it's important. And it's fun to see. Like sometimes we go to the baseball field and they'll like do some fast stuff around, and I'll just, so I can see them when they're way across from me. And it's clear you can see who has a nice form, and like who, like the bounce, some kids who are very bouncy, so
Too bouncy, too.
too bouncy, way too bouncy. I definitely work on form because it's important, and I don't know if they've ever had it, like all the things, like it's usually in one of the first days of practice we go over like just like basic form about like where your arm should be, foot placement.
So what are some of those things? Like what would you say your arms should be?
I mean, like a lot of it is like your shoulders when you're tired go up. Like it's constantly they come up, so that should be swinging lower. Even in races, that's a common thing I'll tell them is like drop your arms, because you can like just constrict your chest and stuff, because they just get up and they, so I always just tell them drop your arms, and you can see immediately there's just like a relief for them, because like they're like, oh,
right. I find myself I remind myself, okay, relax,
right,
like, and I'll think about my fingers, like, okay, because I'll find myself doing this sometimes.
Anything to relax is like it draws the attention away from someplace else that was probably hurting, or
what about strides?
I mean, everyone's kind of different on how they land and stuff, so it depends. Like they're not supposed to spend lots of time in the air. We do a lot of cadence things about like counting how many right foot strikes they have in a minute, and working on increasing that, thinking about like hitting the ground more often.
That's been revolutionary for me recently.
Right.
I probably shifted my stride to way too small to up my cadence.
Right.
But for my longer runs, like really long runs, well, I did an Ironman this last year, and I don't know if you've ever done a triathlon or anything.
I don't like swimming.
Right. But coming off a bike into the run
is hard, I've heard. Really
they
hard.
call it brick runs, because your thighs feel like bricks. In the shorter strides, like it was amazing how quickly I got out of that feeling and felt good. And then for my longer runs, I feel like some of the injuries or things that get uncomfortable for me, like when I do it like a marathon or longer run, that when I've done shorter strides, those don't, like the joints, the tendons, everything feels.
Yeah, you're shuffling more.
I'm
the
landing,
marathon shuffle kind of.
Yeah, I'm landing more solidly. So but the quicker stride has been nice too. Like I feel like I go up hills with less effort.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of a nice. And my Garmin, I have a Garmin. It was kind of showing me. It has a little note that says elite runners have 190.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I'm at 170. I gotta get up there, and it has helped. So.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a big difference because if you're thinking about it, you're consciously doing it. You know. And
right. And then it becomes second nature.
Right.
What do you think about? So, Kaylin did track. She didn't do it last year because of COVID. And the year before, she was in track, and the track coaches were like, "You need to get more supportive shoes. Get some hookah." I don't even know how to say it.
Oh yeah,
the hookah.
Yeah.
And or something similar to that, and we bought into that. But what are your thoughts? Like, yeah, what are your thoughts on footwear? Like, what would you recommend for a marathon runner, or as opposed to your students?
I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, I love Nikes, but I would never run in Nikes. I used to run in Nikes. I just don't think they're supportive enough. I run in Asics. Those are like my favorite, but
do you look for a certain type of support?
I get the same shoe all the time.
But do you know if it's a neutral or if it's a?
It's more cushioning for sure.
But you have some have like pronation and
yeah. I don't really pay attention to that.
Yeah.
I guess I should more. I guess I get I have orthotics. Actually, these ones have orthotics in them. But I mean, everyone's different. Like I look at my team and I have a wide variety. I mean, for me, it's just that they have, when they start the season, they have relatively new shoes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because most of the injuries, when they're like, oh, something hurts, and I said, can I see your shoes? And so I look at them. There's like no soles or support, and I said, well, how long have you had these? They're like, oh,
Right.
I had them for indoor track season. I was like, that's a long time. That's a lot of mileage on those shoes, and they're not meant for that much mileage before they're worn down and it's wearing you down. Right. So
I've thought that, well, I don't know if you ever did any of into the barefoot running craze that happened for a little while, and it's still.
I mean, we had some kids on the team that did it, but
the concept behind it, that literally if you're running barefoot, you're gonna land what's more comfortable. You're not gonna heel strike.
Right.
You're gonna naturally find a more natural to your body running style. I ran a half Ironman with a guy that was actually running barefoot. I was like, I can't even imagine.
Right.
But I did get some thin shoes kind of on that idea, and it did definitely help me. I made a mistake of running actually the MDI marathon in them, which I paid the price. But I do think like some of the overly supportive shoes that do try to correct things in strides all end up causing issues, because you're better off to have. You should learn how to stride better and land better than have your shoe compensate.
Right. No. Yeah. No. That's probably completely true. I should probably look into that.
Well, I've fallen in love with the Treyu myself. It's a startup company out of Texas, but there's like this shoe. There's just nothing to for me. I just want a light shoe that cushions me. I'm not turning corners. I'm not cutting. I'm not planting.
Right.
So I don't need anything in my upper. And I like this because it's like, if it has a little too supportive in the back, I get chafing eventually.
Yeah.
Or, these just don't do anything. And they're cheap. So, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But I like light and just covered. I like to be quiet. Running Millinocket, there was a guy that came up behind me. He was like, whap, 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 whap. I'm like, wow, that's so loud.
Yeah.
Do you do much trail running and stuff?
In cross country we do. I mean, I like trail running. We just, there's not a lot of trails around Hampden.
That's what
we take, for cross country, we take the kids up to the city forest a lot, probably like every other week we go up there. This year we went up to Orono once, because my assistant coach goes to school there, so it was a day he could possibly help if we were there. So
Right.
we did that, and that was nice.
There's so many trails.
So many trails. So I mean, I wish we had more options, and it was a little easier to get to trails. But I enjoy trail running.
Right.
That's what, when I was younger and running, that's all I did is run on the trails. But
I love being in the woods.
yeah.
There just isn't a lot of options out here.
Right, there really isn't, unfortunately.
Yeah. I remember, so I went to Old Town, and I was a swimmer there. My senior year, we had won our 10th state championship in a row. I think they ended up making like 16 in a row or something like that. But the Coach Block, Dave Block, who's still, I believe, a teacher at Old Town, maybe still the swim coach.
Yeah.
He always emphasized, like, or I guess I noticed that he emphasized that everybody was so important. Like even the slowest swimmers, and he'd make a big deal of them getting PRs, and I always kind of, I'm glad I had him as a role model to kind of see, like, by bringing up the bottom, bringing up everybody,
Yeah.
and even the faster swimmers buying into cheering and being
Right.
excited for the young, the slowers,
Right.
and making this kind of atmosphere that's a fun place to be, and we get numbers, and the reason we won states is because there'd be so many swimmers that would start off as freshmen that weren't good swimmers, but by the time they're seniors, you get a few of them that end up being
right.
some of the more elite ones, but you needed a bigger squad, and to get that you need to make everybody feel important. From what I've heard just from Kaylin, who has almost no experience,
Right.
but she said she feels like that's something you probably excel at.
Yeah, no, that is really important to me, actually. I mean, I feel like that everyone matters on my team. I try and give everyone equal attention. We had a kid on our team this year, and he was our last runner, and he wouldn't talk to anyone, and the kids, the boys started to get him included in things, like sometimes they play football before we start running or something, and it is important to me, like everyone's improvements, like after every meet, we go through everyone's improvement, and a 4-minute improvement or a 2-second improvement, it's all the same to me. It's an improvement, and I do that every, the day after every meet, and everyone everyone on my team matters, because like you said, like those kids will come along, and again, how far they come along, that's not important to me. To me, it's important that they've improved. I loved at our banquets to talk about their improvements over 4 years. Like in the banquets, I usually just do how much they've improved in the season.
Right.
But I love doing the improvements that happened over the 4 years, because for some of these kids, it's like 10 minutes, and that's a lot.
Absolutely.
Definitely everyone matters to me. Sometimes I'll run with the varsity boys, and sometimes I run with our slowest runners, which unfortunately is sometimes so slow it's painful to run with them. But it's important that they know that that they matter to me.
So I was going to ask you about that. Like in practice, are you running a lot?
Yeah, I run.
I didn't know if you're standing there, kind of seeing timing.
No, well, I mean, if they're doing a workout, generally they'll do a workout someplace. They'll just stand in time. But if it's just a regular run, no, I run with them. I probably run way more than them, because I run back and forth a lot to make sure, like if we're going somewhere they didn't know, that they know where to turn and stuff. So I go back and forth a lot, and I'll run fast to catch up to a group, and then wait until the next group's coming, and
keeps you in shape.
I feel like I tell them all the time, I feel like I'm constantly counting you guys to make sure that or whoever, because we know who's doing which route before we leave, and I'm constantly making sure that the people that are with me, that I have all of them, because I would feel awful if they something happened, because it's kind of on my watch.
So, and you've said the workouts, if they're doing a workout, I think that's the word you. What does that mean?
So usually 1 or 2 times a week we'll do a workout. They'll do something fast, like the miles, or we'll do thousands with a certain amount of rest, or something.
Right.
Sometimes we do it on the track, and I don't like to do it on the track. They like to do it on the track. I don't like to do it on the track because we don't run on the track. But sometimes it's just a convenience thing.
Right.
Like especially if my assistant coach isn't there, it's just easier if they're all in one space,
Right.
so I can
Right.
kind of monitor them. But yeah.
Well, that's the other piece to the zone 2 training, is that you're working in sprints too. So you're working in zone 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You're getting those high end,
that high stuff, yeah.
and then you're also getting the low end base that you're building up, and yeah. And then so tapering towards the end of the season. What I don't want to give away all your secrets.
Oh no, there's no secrets. I mean, I just use Jack Daniels, not the drink. Yeah, so we just our girls this year were younger, and we didn't know if they would qualify for states, so we tapered them early, and we just basically cut back their mileage, cut back their workouts. We do these.
How far out? Is the season?
Usually a week.
Okay.
For girls, we did a week out. We do these things called Carolina Cruisers, where we do 400. Sorry. We start with 8, and then the next day we do 6, and we get back to 1. So by Friday they do 1 400s with a warm up and cool down, and so they feel, for Saturday race, they feel very fresh, like ready to go. They're even like antsy.
Right.
Like you can see,
Right.
like that 1 400 on Friday, they're always like super antsy, like just like, that's it, like I'm ready to go, which is what we want. The boys, we knew that they were going to go farther, so we didn't taper them, and we didn't even taper them the same way.
All right, because they have how tight are so there's like regional states,
and then there's
and
2
New
weeks for
England's?
New England's away, so it's hard to sustain a taper that long. So we
Right.
kind of didn't. Their taper was a little different.
So you're more aiming for states.
Yeah, so
and
we aimed for
westward.
we didn't taper them for regionals, but we did kind of taper them for states. Kind of the same idea. These 400s we do, but we didn't do it that far out. We didn't do a week with them. We did
Right.
it shorter, so we could, because we knew we'd probably qualify for New England's, or we'd hope we'd qualify for
Right.
New England. So we.
Is there tiers to like making states for the runners? Like,
Yeah,
you have to qualify.
So we're in Class A, so they take the top 30 individuals, and then they take the top half of the teams. So if there's 10 teams that are starting the race, they'll take 5. If there's 11, they'll take 6. They bump it up. So
So do you have some of your boys tapering for regionals because you're trying to get them into the...
No, we
No,
didn't
doesn't
taper
work
the
like that.
boys.
None of them.
None of them, because we knew. I mean, the KVAC, which is the previous week, we were second in, so we figured we were gonna qualify. So we didn't taper
Right.
them.
Right. I know at swimming there'd be a lot of different... Everybody would be on a different schedule because you have the swimmers that are trying to qualify for states. So the
Right.
last meet of the year that's their Super Bowl to try to get into states.
Right.
And to have all
Right.
this.
I mean, we did have like Abbott, like he was kind of different than, you know what I mean, because he wanted to go for the win at states and wanted to do well in New England. So he's kind of, his training has been very different, but still all aiming for, the end result.
Did he win at states?
He won, yeah, and he got runner of the year also. So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then what about like carb loading, or like do you even get into
So
like
the
what you
boys, they
recommend?
usually go out to eat at Olive Garden, usually Thursday or Friday. I don't want to be involved with that
Right.
because I don't know. I always tell them to wear like Bangor clothes or something because I'm like, I don't know what they're gonna do. But they were always really well. Sometimes I guess one time they went all dressed up in tuxes because some of them have tuxes. I don't know how, but they. So yeah, but they do that on their own. They're pretty good with their nutrition, and like, like I said, runners are superstitious. They know what they want to eat.
Right.
They're very, very, what time they should eat. With the boys, like I don't have to tell them that. They already have that pattern down. With the newer kids, we talk about that, but with the more experienced kids on the team, they already have their pattern and they don't want you to interrupt it.
Right. Yeah, we always used to do spaghetti dinners, but now looking back at that, I don't think that was maybe the best idea. You got so much in your system, and
right.
So,
yeah, they usually do it on usually Thursdays now. I think, I don't know. I didn't want to know what they were doing at the restaurant.
Right.
One time they were at Texas Roadhouse, I think, and they bought Mr. Lauer a hot dog, just a hot dog, not the bun. So I don't know.
Wow, and so there's it's amazing how much goes into coaching cross country. I had no idea.
Right, like last night I was in front of the board being recognized, and I feel like everyone kind of understands basketball and football and soccer. Maybe not swimming but like I don't think anyone has any idea like all that goes into just running. I mean, it's crazy. It's just running. They'll be like, oh, it's just running. Well, it's not actually just running. There's a lot to it, and helping to prevent injuries or overtraining or undertraining or dealing with their mental side.
Right. It is a sport. I guess you probably could check out. You could be a pretty lazy coach and get by. You won't be very successful at the end of the day. But the level you're taking it to, it's impressive.
I mean, the good thing for me is that the other coaches that I deal with mostly are the Bangor coach, Roger Huber, and Brewers coach, Glendon Rand, who's one of my dear friends. We're really close, and we all kind of have the same, personality about our teams and stuff. So that makes it a lot nice, because we're in the KVC, just like, Keelan has that too, that, I don't know, we've found that we're really tight with those teams because, we go to the KVC and they're all really tight because they're close to each other. So I think that, having people to be on your side is important.
Did you have Helen as a runner? Did she run cross country?
She didn't run cross country. She just ran track. So
I used to love watching her in track.
She was amazing to watch.
Apparently she's doing quite well at West Point, I think.
Yeah, no, she has a stress fracture right now, though.
Oh, does she? I haven't heard anything in the last year, but
that was.
I know she was setting records as a freshman. Yeah, we do. So Kaylin would do long jump was one of her and sprint. So Dee and I would get to the university early and rake. We we were on the raking crew, so that we could stand and watch everybody. It was like, oh, Helen's running. That's why.
No, she was gorgeous to watch. Like great stride, just so smooth and easy.
I always found though that her facial expressions she looked very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But she'd just stay in that zone, which was always so impressive to me. Like, because it is such a mental sport.
It really is.
Like to me, I feel like I'm playing chess when I'm running now. I mean, because I'm constantly like having to not think about that, think about this. Don't